different, and we want to make sure that, you know, we're adding value to your life and it's not sort of, you know, a formula. So this week I've asked Dawn, the lovely Dawn, to join us again, because I mean, if anybody's built a 3.5 billion rand business and knows how to hustle and knows how to sell, it's Dawn. So she's going to kind of come in and out and really just answer questions. Please, guys, it's so nice when it is interactive. Obviously, we have a message to deliver, but it is lovely when you do interact with us, and we really do encourage it. You know, this is week 3 now. We're starting to get to know each other. Once again, thank you for those who are reaching out to us. You know, this is what it's really all about. And we really do want to offer at the end of this course a golden circle mentorship program that I will be discussing with Lisa. And, you know, it's something that we want to offer a select few of you. We can't do it for all 25 of you, but the select few of you who really want to take their business to the next level, we really want to help you with that. So on that note, this week is really about action. So I don't know if any of you are familiar with yoga, and I'm not a yogi, but it's so interesting for me that the colors of the rainbow are actually the same as the colors of your chakras. Now, in the first course, it was the red level, and it's all about I am. And that is what the red chakra means. It is I am. In when you move up, orange is I feel, and that is how your customers feel about you. And in yellow, and yellow in your chakras is I do. So it really is all about action, and it's what are you doing to actually get out there and sell your product. And then I'll go through the others later, but I just wanted to highlight that because this is really the action level. This is now, you know, taking your marketing, but letting your marketing back you up, but really committing to action here, backing yourself and do whatever it takes. Now, my first slide, let me see, is called, hold on, sorry, Eat the Frog. Now, for so many people that open their own business, sales doesn't come naturally to, you know, you've got this incredible idea. Sometimes it does. I must say, I loved the sales side of my business in the early days. And I think Dawn, if I may say, I think was something that you were really, really good at as well, the hustle. But it's not for everybody. And so we've just coined this phrase, eat the frog. If you are not a natural salesperson, what this means is make those calls in the morning. Do what you dislike the most in the morning. So in other words, if you need to do those 5, 10 calls, sales is a numbers game, guys. It's really about getting out there and, you know, making those calls, putting yourself online, doing the things, but do the things in the morning that you don't like. So eat the frog. If you've got 2 horrible things to do, eat the ugly one first. So if sales is not your thing, because it sets you up for a better day. So if you want to make those 5 calls, connect with those clients, and you just feel that sense of accomplishment, and then you can have a better day. So I just wanted to explain what we mean by eat the frog. Okay, so once again, we're going to go through 7 stages for a successful sales strategy. Now, there's so much more than just 7 stages. So we're going to be using other information. You know, online has become so important and strategic, especially now in this time of crisis. It would be remiss of us not to include an online section. So I have added to this. We're not going to follow this. You know, you can read it in your book and you can go through it in your presentation, but we're going to add a little bit to this presentation because I just think, you know, the sales strategy now is slightly different to what it was possibly, you know, 6 to 8 months ago. Okay, so number 1. And, you know, this is really following on from last week and about making sure that you identify that target market. You know who your ideal customer is, go there. And I think this is about creating momentum. Now, you have to think of sales as almost like starting to ride a bike. And, you know, in the beginning, it's hard. And, you know, you're riding up that hill and you know, you're using all your energy and it's really hard. And sometimes I feel that we just give up just before we're about to reach the top. But once you reach the top and you kind of, you know, start getting that momentum, it becomes easier and easier. So, and I think for this is really about focusing on who is your ideal customer. Who is that? And focus on that. Focus on, in the early stages of CWDI, we knew that we wanted to go for financial services. It was where the money is, go where the fast flowing water is in the beginning, and we targeted those financial services clients. So pick your sector of the market, like Denise was saying earlier, in fact, it wasn't Denise, I think it was Shelley, or, you know, pick your sector of the market. Is it small business? Is it medium business? Is it, you know, women? Who is your perfect target market? And then focus on that. Once we landed the Alan Gray account in the early days, then it was easier for us to gain that momentum. Then other financial services clients started talking to us, and we really made that a key strategy. So it's so important. Who is that group of people? And make a list of who the 5 or 6 top clients that you really want to go for, and identify them, and you know, kind of make it your mission to really land those clients. Dawn, do you want to add anything there?
Sorry, so maybe just to add to that, Les, I think we need to address the elephant in the room, which is COVID. And our worlds have changed. Our worlds have been turned on its head. And I think when picking your customer, and I mean, there's 2 markets, there's your B2B and your B2C. So I think Dita is very much into the corporate, but I think Joseph is into the consumer. So very different when you're in 2 different types of market. You're either in the one or you're in the other. But during COVID, what we've learned is that if you only in one select market, to Les's point about financial services, if you were in financial services and only relied on them in 2008 with the financial crisis, you would be dead. So if you were a travel agent, and we've had, and I've sort of been part, we own Tourvest, so I've been part of the whole travel industry. If you only had chosen international, you would have been finished. So I think it's important that you have a spread, that you know what your core market is, but that you have other markets to support, because you never know. There are always catastrophes, there are always things that happen. So I think you need to pick the market, but you need to make sure that you've got a spread. So yes, 80% of your business can be financial services, or it can be FMCG, but make sure that you've got a spread of other markets in the eventuality of something like COVID hitting. Les, I hope that's okay and speaks to what you're saying.
No, I think it's such a great point. And in fact, you know, after 5 or 6 years, we realized that, you know, we were at risk. And I'm so glad you said that, because, you know, yes, they were one of our biggest clients, and for 5 or 6 years, but then we did diversify, because exactly as you say. But I think in the beginning, Dawn, you know, it's so important to just get it right. And, you know, I think we got it right with them, and then we were in a position to diversify. And I think it goes back to, you know, catching those 2 rabbits. Focus in the beginning, get it right, then understand what you're good at, and then start diversifying. So I 100% agree with you. But I think if it's early stages of your business, just identify where that fast flowing water is and go with that. Okay, so number 2, and I think, you know, this is where you guys are, I think you don't realize how lucky you are to have an organization like ORT Jet. And, you know, I know this is such an irritating saying, and but it's so true. You know, the people that you know, your network is your net worth. And I joined probably about, when my company was about 10 years old, I joined an organization called EO, which is an entrepreneur organization, which has got 14,000 people globally. And it was such an incredible look. It costs, and I don't see it as a cost. I mean, it does cost probably about 60 or 80,000 Rand a year now. I think with the exchange rate, it's terrible, but I pay that with absolute sort of love every year. And I've been a member for over 10 years, because the value that I have got out of that network is insurmountable. And I almost can't tell you one thing, because it's so many things, from a feeling like I've had a safety net in place, feeling like there are people to talk to, there are similar people in my position, through COVID, my EO network has just been phenomenal. Sending documents, sending in the early days, they sent, you know, what was McKinsey doing? What were the big consulting firms doing during this time? And it was take action, use these as your strategies. I honestly don't think my business would be in the place it is now. Look, it's still tough, don't get me wrong, but we're surviving. And, you know, but without that support and that network, I honestly don't think I would be where I am now. And I think, Dawn, you know, your network is just phenomenal. And one of the things that Over the Rainbow, that before I hand over to Dawn, one of the things that Over the Rainbow that we really want to help you with are those connections. And, you know, I'm on a WhatsApp group called EO Needs and Leads, and please put me in touch with this person. Can you help me with that person? You know, and I think ORT Jet can be that for you guys as well. How do you connect? Because a referral, when somebody says to me, you know, Les, or I can say, oh, XYZ referred me to you, Dawn referred me to you, Lisa referred me to you, all of a sudden you want to talk to that person because they're a trusted resource. And I go back to that trust being a business currency. So your network is so vitally important. I think, Dawn, you would agree with me there.
Absolutely. And I think that just to quote my mother, is that your network is really important. And I used to come home and say to my mom, guess who I know? I met Harry Oppenheimer. In fact, I drove Harry Oppenheimer. And my mother actually said to me, that's great, but it's not who you know, it's who knows you. So I think what you need to do is with your network, you need to really get them, you know, share your voice. Let them know about you, and you know, let them, and you need to know a lot about them too. So I think you need to use your network. Like I use networks and people that I met 30 years ago that I still am in contact with all the time. I mean, there's not many industries that I can't say, oh, I know this person, I can tap in. But I also want to just say that in terms of network, I think Lisa and Brenna are incredible in terms of their network. They do, I think, Lisa, you spend your life sort of networking, and I mean, you grabbed me as I moved to Cape Town. I think Brenna was the first person who called me. I don't know how you even knew I was in Cape Town. So the power of that is absolutely critical. You know who your customers are, know what they're doing, know what's happening in their life, absolutely important.
But I think, Dawn, you know, just going back to your point on who knows you, I think that's one of the reasons that we also wanted to write this book. You know, nobody makes money out of books. But it does put us out there in terms of the speaking circuit, in terms of other avenues for people to start networking with us and to build our network. And that is absolutely one of the reasons, you know, not to only spread the hope, not to only make sure that we uplift the people in our book, but also to widen our network. And I think, you know, just back to this point, that's why it's just so important. So please use your network, and ORT Jet are just simply fantastic. Okay, so I really want to stress this point of being prepared for your meetings. I remember once being at an EO conference. I've been very lucky to travel a lot with EO and go to these incredible leadership conferences around the world. And I remember going to a sales session where the first thing that the presenter said was, don't burn the meeting. And it's about being prepared. So I know some of you have reached out to me, and you know, before I actually agree to a call with you or agree to, you know, meeting you, I go and look for you on LinkedIn or on Facebook or on the web, or, you know, find out a little bit more about you, because I think it's just, you know, so important for me to be prepared for that meeting. I mean, I don't want to waste your time. I certainly want to waste my own time, you know, so that I can give you the most value. So you really do need to research your clients, research, you know, who the people are that you are going to be talking to. There was a beautiful video that I watched the other day, and I wish I actually could play it, but I couldn't find it, and it's on my personal profile on Facebook, and it's about leading with empathy. And it's about this, this woman who takes her husband and they want to go and buy a new truck. But the guy has got all the technical knowledge about the truck, but he'd researched, they'd made an appointment, and the salesman had researched this guy that was coming to buy the truck. And he found out that he was part of the autistic board and that he had an autistic child. And when they came for the appointment, the salesman said, oh, I believe that you're on the autism board. And he had also had experience with this. He never spoke about the truck. He never spoke about, you know, the horsepower or how to sell the truck. He just appealed to him and, you know, his personal side. Before they'd left for the meeting, the husband said to the wife, we're not buying anything today. I'm just going to go and look. And he was quite irritated that she was sort of dragging him to go and do this. By the end of, you know, their discussion and that he had appealed to his empathetic side, he said to the salesman, I think you have what we need here. Please look for the video. It's so beautiful. It's short. It was done by, I think, a Harvard Business Review. But it's such a great video about really being prepared, knowing your audience, knowing who you're speaking to, because leading with empathy is just, and especially in this time, is such an important characteristic and such an important trait. So every meeting, be prepared, know who you're talking to. Dawn.
Les, just to add something is that, you know, people don't plan to fail, but they fail to plan. And I think for all of us, we get so excited, particularly entrepreneurs, when you're starting up, you just want to go. But the preparation and the planning part is absolutely critical. And particularly today with technology and access to information, as Les said, it's at our fingertips. We really don't have to like phone a friend to find out about somebody. It's all there. So just make sure that you plan and you prepare before any meeting, before any presentation, before any customer visit. So yeah, great point though, Les. It's a really important part of the sales process.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, you know, selling the solution, not the product. We are so, at the end of this session, I'm actually going to play you. And for those of you who haven't seen it, good. And for those of you who have, I'm sorry, but it's all, I've watched it 100 times myself. I'm going to play you the Simon Sinek Start With Why. And it really is about selling the solution, not the product. And, you know, you've got to find where those pain points are and sell the solution. You know, we're all very quick to lead with what we do, but when we lead with why we do it, it's so much more effective. And yesterday I was on a call it was to one of you, sorry, the lady that's got the art studio. And yeah, we had such a lovely discussion about, you know, she's got to sell her why, because it's just, people are struggling at the moment. Mental health is a big issue. And if she leads with that, you know, her chances of success are so much better. I remember my friend Richmar Holland once saying to me, you've got to talk to your audience as if it's what's in it for me. So let's say, and I'll use myself now as an example, I have an agency and somebody comes to me at a braai and it's like, what do you do? So instead of saying I run an agency, it's more like, you know, when you really need a beautiful brand to stand out, or you know, when you're really struggling to get your product out there, well, that's where we can help you. And it's so much better because then they are interested because you're talking to them and their problem. So it's much better to be able to say, well, you know, when you XYZ, you know, when you struggle to find a nice meal at night and you need an easy solution, we go, you know, well, that's what I do. We have a company called YouCook. You know, when you're really feeling down and you need to unlock your creativity, well, that's what we do. So really think about what's in it for them. There's what's in it for me, being the recipient of, when you're talking to somebody, people are quite selfish and they want to know what's in it for me. Okay, Dawn, I think you can start with this one. Listen intently. And there's some great stats around this, but I'll let you lead.
Les?
Yeah.
Okay. So I think listening to customers, listening to what they say, I think as salespeople, and I think I see myself very much like a sales marketing type of person. You want to talk so much, but you really have to take a step back and listen to what customers say. And again, that's why we've got 2 ears and 1 mouth. We need to listen twice as much as we speak. And I think the power of that is incredible, because there's so often that if we're not listening, we lose out on so many important key takeouts. Whether it's like what somebody said, reading between the lines. So the power of listening is incredible. And we learn so much more about what the customer needs. And I mean, we used to go through a process in many of our businesses where our staff would, through obviously on their iPads or write down as much information as possible. And we even found that when people were writing, so they were saying, what is your requirement? How much do you spend? What are you looking for? Et cetera, how can we help you? And just by writing, actually you stop listening. So we found that where there were two people, one was writing in their notebook and the other was listening, because I don't know if you've ever been in a special moment and you want to capture that moment and you use your phone to actually like take a video, and you lose the moment if you're with me. So I think try if you can and listen. And if you can, and if you've got a good memory, write your notes afterwards, because very often we lose the important message if we're trying to do two things at the same time. I mean, as women, we can do 2, 3 things. Sorry, men that are there. As women, we can do a couple of things at the same time. But the power of listening is absolutely is key. Les, do you want to add some more? Because you've got some very important statistics that you want to share.
Exactly. And I think research shows that top performing salespeople speak 46% of the time, and they listen 54% of the time. So they listen more than they speak. And I sit on various boards for small businesses, and they've got very experienced people sitting on their board, and all these small companies do is talk. And I remember 2 weeks ago, one of the board members said or the chairperson said to the company that we are mentoring, guys, you need to listen, because you've got these 5 or 6 people who have got so much experience, and all you're doing is talking. So it was such a great lesson for me as well, and a great reminder that in these meetings we really do need to listen, because you get so much more out of it. And exactly what Dawn said, it's those little nuances. Sometimes it's the reading between the lines and that you can pick up on. So I just wanted to really make a point.
So to your point, Les, as well, is I tweet a lot. If any of you follow me on Twitter, and when I talk about leadership, I think the power of any leader is silence. As a leader, you don't have to be the biggest voice in the room. You don't have to be the loudest voice in the room. You actually don't have to say the most in the room, but you need to be silent. And I think knowing when to be silent as a leader, as a salesperson, as an entrepreneur is so important. Silence, I think, is the biggest quality of the greatest leaders, to actually not just want to hear your own voice over and over. So on that note, I'll get off.
Thank you, Dawn. Okay, so I just also want to make sure that what do we mean by keeping track as well is make sure that you are also connecting with the right people. So keep track of what you're doing, but also make sure you are connecting with the right people. Connect with the decision makers. Sometimes it's just not good enough to connect with the admin people. Make sure you are connecting with the decision makers, because they're the people at the end of the day that are going to be parting with the money. So, whether it's, if you're dealing in a corporate market, make sure that you're on the procurement list and you followed all the right things to do, but connect with the right decision makers. And guys, during this time, one of the things that we also got out of our book, people are listening, people are staying at home, they are more accessible. You just need to tune in and find them. And I think what I'd like to do now is just touch on, building an online presence as well. And I think last week I touched on it from a marketing point of view about, running different campaigns at the same time and then keeping track of those. With sales, it's exactly the same. What are the things that you can do that work and what is not working? So you need to amplify then what is working and stop doing what isn't working. And that's what we mean by keeping track. But with just building an online presence, I just want to quickly go into, I also follow various overseas mentors, and I'm often on podcasts and training courses. One of our values at Over the Rainbow is continuous learning. We always want to be learning. We always want to be learning new things. And, when we wrote this book 5 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, the digital era, the online wasn't as big as it is now. So it's very important for Dawn and myself and Sandy to make sure that we're keeping track of our own sales processes and making sure that we're staying relevant. We've launched an e-commerce site now, we're making sure that we are building that online presence. But I think it's also about creating one irresistible offer. And, I look at myself and I look at the things that attract me online, and what is something that you can create as a sort of an irresistible offer online. I'm going to go through quickly 7 things to do when you are wanting to succeed online. One is, how do you create that one irresistible offer? So what we want to do when we're building an online platform is we want to try and get to those 1,000 fans. Remember, a fan in your life is somebody that's going to recommend you, and people who recommend you will also buy more from you. And it's better for other people to be saying how amazing you are than for yourself to be saying how amazing you are. So create that one irresistible offer. Solve one annoying problem. So what is the problem that you're solving? All of you that I've spoken to that have reached out to me separately are solving that one annoying problem. What is that annoying problem, and how can you say it in that one quick, easy 20-second elevator statement? Speak to the one ideal customer in the beginning, and absolutely later on diversify, but identify who is that ideal customer and go after that segment of the market. Look after your health. I know this sounds quite weird, but Zoom fatigue is a thing. And, it's quite intense. And I find it also, Dawn and I have also been on these endless webinars and endless, but we also taking breaks in between. And Dawn went away last week. As you know, I was away 2 weeks ago. So look after your health, because your health is your wealth. There's no point in putting all this effort and energy and having a nervous breakdown at the end of the day. So also make sure that you are giving yourself a break. I'm not going to tell you whose blog I read yesterday, but because it might be a surprise for you later on in the course. But the one thing he said that he has learned about COVID is almost do less, but be more focused. And I think it's such a great thing. Sometimes we run around like chickens without a head, but focus on the things that you need to focus on. Do less, but make it more effective. Okay. Yeah, better isn't better. Different is better. And I think that this is such an important point. It's not about standing up, it's about standing out. So better is not better, different is better. And I actually loved that as well. And I thought, how are we going to differentiate ourselves? And that's something that you guys really, really, really need to think seriously about. What is your differentiating factor? And then if you don't like sales, you definitely get good at marketing, because, not everybody is a salesperson, but if you don't like the sales, get good at marketing. And then focus on building trust. And I spoke about that last week. I'll speak about it again, building that trust with your ideal customers, because that's when people recommend you. So I really just wanted to get that, so how to build those, how to succeed online. I'm also happy to take questions afterwards, because this is such a huge subject. And I think it's such an opportunity now to build your businesses online. And I really encourage you all, if you can, this is your opportunity to build that business online. And I have connections, once again, of people who are doing e-commerce sites quite cost effectively. We had ours done very cost effectively. So if you want to reach out to me, I'm very happy to give those referrals. Dawn, is there anything else that you want to add to that?
No, I think, Liz, and I just again back to the point about, you spoke a little bit about digital transformation and e-commerce and having online platforms. But I do believe that, and we all dream, entrepreneurs dream, and you know, a dream for me without execution, and I'll say it twice because it needs to sink in. A dream without execution is hallucination. So a dream without execution is hallucination. And I think sometimes a lot of us get trapped. We have these dreams, but if we don't action them, like, what's the point? So I think to all the points that you've made this morning, Les, I think, you know, without execution and action for all of these things, I mean, all of these good things that you've been sharing, Les, without executing it. And also, I think the other thing, it's executing, and it's also practicing. You know, practicing these things over and over again. If it doesn't work, try it again. Doesn't work, try it again. Because you often hear people say, but I've tried it. I ask, how many times have you tried it? I've tried it once, or keep trying it. Because for me, entrepreneurship is not, it's not a science. It's not an art. It's really about practice, practicing different things. So I really think, you know, putting things into action, execution, and just keep practicing, and keep making mistakes, because it's actually the only way that you're going to learn.
Yeah, and this is a great time to learn and make mistakes, because you've got a huge excuse. I mean, COVID is a great excuse for sort of, but do it fast, you know, fail fast, but, you know, and as Dawn says, you know, keep practicing and, you know, changing your strategy to ensure that, you know, see what's working. And I think it is around practice and getting it right. Building, you know, we're doing exactly the same thing, guys. You know, something's working, something's not working. You know, selling our book, what is the right platform for us? Is it Facebook? Is it Instagram? Just getting back to the jewelry lady who's building her business on Instagram. My friend Simone from Musgrave Gin literally built her empire, and I do say empire because it is pretty much an empire now globally, on Instagram. And, you know, she's somebody in my network, lives down the road in Hartway, an ordinary person doing extraordinary things. And, you know, you really can build your business online these days. I think our preferred platform for us, I believe, is Facebook, but because it's quite difficult to share links and all of those kind of things.
Heidi's to see mommy. She says that.
Okay. I think somebody's on the line. But yeah, just reflect, make sure that you're going to the right place, make sure you're building your business online on the right platforms for your product. And then
yes, can I just mention something? One of the speakers on our panel we had a few weeks ago, celebrating women, we had a panel of 4 women share some insights and reflections, and the one lady is an entrepreneur, and she also spoke about, she's in the events business, and after, in February, as you would know, had a full diary for 2020, and within a couple of weeks had an empty diary. And she and her sister run a business called Sister Act. And she shared with us how they have now created and pivoted a purely online solution for creating events. And her true, you know, at the end of it, she said, when I was thinking, she came to mind when Dawn was talking about entrepreneurship is around practicing and execution. And I think to add to that is never give up. You know, she and her sister and her team and partners, because they run their business through collaborations and connecting with great service providers to allow her to deliver. She just said they just never gave up, and they were just determined to find a solution that people could believe in, trust her, and now the business is starting to flow and bookings are happening. So it's,
yeah, 100%, Lisa. I mean, I think, at CWDI, we did exactly the same thing. Suddenly we all had to go on digital courses. Suddenly we all had to understand, how to run a Zoom meeting with breakout rooms and different platforms, and learn Teams and learn Google Hangouts. I mean, the learning curve in those first couple of months was exponential. And I think that this time we've really had to learn new skills as well. And I totally agree with you. We had to do exactly the same thing. And then reflect on what's working and never give up. Exactly. Because, people aren't going to immediately just think, oh, wow, you've just got to keep on pushing and keep on pushing. And I think it just leads into my last point. But before I get to that, and in our book, it's, the reflecting is, how did it go? What worked? What didn't work? But most importantly about sales, and I know Dawn's going to agree with me here, and Dawn's very much about the numbers, is, did I hit my numbers? And, we're going to be going very much into the finance and numbers and make money doing what you love next week. But did I hit my numbers? And I think, whether that's the number of sales calls you're making, the number of people that you're trying to reach out to, whatever it is, you've always got to be asking yourself, did I hit my numbers? Because at the end of the day, sales does solve everything. Sales is the one thing that is the driver for revenue. And, you've got to be asking yourself, am I hitting my numbers? So also what I love, and also in the book, and I'm sorry to just repeat to the book, but for those of you who either haven't got it or just haven't read it, going on to the repeat, 2% of sales are made on the first contact. 2%. So you reach out to somebody, they don't get back to you, and you're like, oh gosh, I've reached out to them. And you're not going to make that sale, guys. It's 2%, okay? 3% of sales are made on the second contact. These are National Executive Association statistics. 3% of sales are made on the second contact. So you reach out to that client for the second time, you're only going to succeed 3% of the time. 5%. So now you are reaching out to them for the third time, and now you're feeling like maybe a little bit of a stalker. But only 5% of your sales are going to be made on that third contact. 10% on the fourth contact. But by contact, we don't mean, constantly phoning them or constantly emailing them or whatever the case may be. They probably need to see you online. They need to make sure you need to be in the news. They need to be, maybe there is an email campaign that you've done. Maybe there is a phone call. What are the various touch points where they are that they are seeing you? So by contact, it could be seeing you online, or see, oh gosh, yes, I remember over the radio. Oh yes, I remember those people. Oh wow, gosh, they've reached out to me again. Just a quick story. I remember getting notices from my children's school. The first time they send a notice, oh, please send money for this. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. The second time, oh, please send, money for, oh, yes, oh, sure, maybe I should do it. The third time, I'm like, oh, yes, sure, okay, I need to send this money. So sometimes you just need to be consistent and repeat and repeat. 80%, so now we're getting to 80% of sales are made on the 5th to 12th contact. You really need to be repeating your process. You need to be constantly out there. People aren't you don't build trust with somebody on the first meeting. It takes a long time. You think of how did you build up your friendships over the years. It takes years and years and lots of repeat meetings and repeat engagements. So really don't be shy to repeat the process and make sure that you're reaching out between 5 to 12 times to build that rapport and that trust with your client. Dawn, you want to say anything here? I think you might be on mute.
No, Les, I think just to sum up the 7 points, I think for me, I always love Brené Brown. I'm sure many of you have read her books. And Brené Brown says, you either walk inside your story and own it, or you stand outside your story and you hustle for your worthiness. And I really think it sums up everything that we've been discussing this morning. So, walk inside your story, be authentic, own, it is what you do. And I know the first day there were quite a few new businesses there, and you really have to take your story and make it your own and tell people about your story. And I think one of the successes of our book, and I hate you mentioned the book that we launched this week, was that the book is pure storytelling. It's people telling stories of what happened to them over COVID, losing their businesses, the fear, the anxiety, all of those things. And I think we must, in our businesses, we need to own our story, but we also need to tell our story. And I know we need to listen. We've been talking about listening, but we need to tell our story. People do like to know, and everyone has a story. Every single person has a story. So I think the power of storytelling and really owning it, because otherwise you're going to be living, how many business people and leaders and entrepreneurs actually never live their authentic self. They live in, like, they want to be somebody, but guys, just turn up, show up exactly as you are, and own it, and tell people about your story. I mean, your Jim Joseph is amazing. I can't wait to tell people about, like, this amazing guy, and this is what he's doing. Stories are so impactful, and I know that people, every time somebody says, "Oh, tell me about when you started the car rental business with 6 cars in 1980," and I actually want to go, I can't bear to tell that story again. But people want to know, like, a good story. Like Sarit, you were talking, Lisa, about Sarit with her virtual plan. I mean, that is just mind-blowing. I mean, when I saw that, I sent it to Les straight away. Tell your story, because you all have an authentic story. And I think we need to share our stories. Dita, you had a question and you said, how is the best way to put your recruitment business? Where do you put it in social media? For me, LinkedIn would be the best place to go in terms of recruitment, either if you're looking for the corporate side or if you're looking for the actual person who needs to find a job. I think LinkedIn by far is the best platform. So thanks, Les. I mean, that was my 5 cents worth.
Okay, brilliant. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm actually also just looking, Lisa, if we'll get to all these. I can see there's like 15 questions. We can just get to these at the end. I'm going to spend a little bit of time on negotiating, but I really want to play the video and I want to leave 5 minutes at the end. And I can see that we're already at 20 past. So I think for me, I'm not going to go through the negotiating. It's usually part of our face-to-face. You can go through it in the book. If you want to know a little bit more about this, you can reach out to me separately. But I think what I want to say about negotiating is, if you are a poor negotiator, you will spend a fortune. If you are a good negotiator, you will save a fortune. And if you're a great negotiator, you will make a fortune. You have to hone your negotiating skills. And it's so important for you to understand, when to negotiate, how to negotiate. But I think my point in this next section here is, you need to also stay in your power. If somebody is, you're in a situation where you need to negotiate, don't always back down. Know your worth. And we'll go into that a lot next week, but it is about knowing your worth, and it's about staying in your power. So when you are negotiating, please go through the negotiating section in my book. If you don't have it, I can always email it to you. But you really do need to, in order to be a great salesperson, you really do need to have great negotiation skills.
Les, sorry, can you just elaborate a little bit on what you mean by staying in your power?
So what I mean by that is, don't always back down. So if somebody is saying, oh, we need a better price, or, can you negotiate on this price? Don't always say yes. Actually say no, because by compromising on your value, you then start operating from a position of weakness. So when you understand your value, and I gain so much more respect. A little bit of a compromise sometimes, but because everybody likes to be getting a deal. But if you charge 1,000 Rand an hour, and you know that is worth it because you know the value that you are going to get. So understand your value and understand your worth. Because once you do that, you can stay in your power. And I gain so much more respect for people when they say, Les, this is the price of my product. And I'm terribly sorry, I'm not prepared to negotiate because I know that you're going to get the value. People respect you more and you start building up their respect. If you suddenly, say, yeah, no, I can give it to you at 500 Rand an hour or whatever the case may be, I think you actually lose some respect because you're not valuing yourself. And I think that's what I mean by staying in your power. If they're buying a lot from you or, there's room to negotiate from that point of view, it's a volume deal, then obviously you want to negotiate, but don't underestimate and don't devalue yourself and your product. That's what I mean. Okay, you can go through this. Okay, so just before I go through, get onto the video, sorry, I'm going all over the show here. One of the things about being, I think you need to be quite organized when you are planning your week. And this goes through to your marketing, your finance, I mean, everything, especially if you're running a small business. So this is, please guys, this is just my structure for what I try and stick by. I must say it doesn't always work out this way, but I think being organized goes a long way to ensuring that you can plan properly, exactly what Dawn said earlier. Failing to plan is planning to fail. So when we are running a business, we really need to be quite organized and quite structured. I always use Mondays as my planning day. There's always a meeting in the morning, a company meeting in the morning. We plan for the week ahead. We set realistic goals. We set our goals for this is what we want to achieve this week. This is who we want to reach out to. These are the goals that we have this week. Tuesday is what we call GSD, Get Stuff Done Day. So we execute on Monday's plans. We follow up on our sales process. Just remember, also research shows that Tuesdays and Thursdays are the best days for social media. It's probably more now because of lockdown and because people are, on their social media a lot more. But statistics showed that Tuesdays and Thursdays, funnily enough, between 10 and 2 are the best days for social media. So that was just a little side point. Wednesday is often our action day. Have your meetings. Make sure that you're, it's sort of your hump day. Have your meetings. Do build relationships. Stay focused. Thursdays, how do you for your follow-up day? I always do my follow-ups on Thursday. Send out those emails. Send out the communication for the following week. Keep that momentum going. And then my Friday is my checking up on my staff day and doing all my admin. So, because Friday, I mean, especially in Cape Town, terribly sorry to say, but Friday afternoon is a little bit of a dead time. And I always like to use Friday afternoons for admin and just sorting out what I need, what hasn't been wrapped up for the week. So I think this is just about being organized. And I really do want to close off now with Simon's video. Have we got time, or would you rather want to? You can watch this in your own time. We have got 10 minutes. We don't have to watch it all together. I strongly recommend that you watch this video. It's the Simon Sinek Find Your Why. Maybe I won't play it now because it's going to take 3 or 4 minutes, and I don't want to eat into our Q&A session because I think it is quite important to engage and just answer your questions. So please go and look for Simon Sinek Find Your Why. It's so brilliant. It's about how your brain works. It's how people engage with you. It's about selling, why you do things rather than what you do. And I can't recommend it highly enough. Okay, I'm very happy to take some questions. Let me stop sharing and get you all on the screen. Here we go.
Les, there was a question earlier. I'm just going to quickly find it.
Wholesale versus the do you look after your wholesale or the end customer? I think it's quite a good question I saw there. Is that the one you're referring to, Lisa? I think Karen.
Yeah, you can start off with that. Yeah, go for it.
I think it's quite a good question because having come from that industry where we had, whether it was the travel industry or the tour operator industry, the car businesses, you always had different levels. So you had your tour operators, or you had your brokers, or you had your distributors, like the car manufacturers distributed through their dealerships. So I think both are extremely important. You've got to look after your wholesaler, your distributor, your reseller. And that's important. That relationship is absolutely key. But it's a different type of relationship. Because your distributor, I mean, I don't know what type of relationship, Karen, you have with them, but they can drop you tomorrow for somebody else. So I think it's really key that they are like important, and the relationship that you have and the relationship you build with them is absolutely critical. But at the end of the day, you may not ever know your end user. But I think it's extremely important to actually understand what your end user thinks of your product or your service. So you need to balance the two. So in the businesses that I've run in the past, there was always this, do we look after the brokers or do we look after the OEMs, or, who's our customer? And I think it's very different relationships that you have with both, but both are very key, because you really need to know directly from the customer what they feel about your service or your product or your business. So that's why I've always believed in this multi-level sales. And sales is a little bit of an old-fashioned word, sorry, Les, but customer relationship is for me a better word than sales. So in our business, we had obviously all the people reselling us, the brokers, distributors, the OEMs, the tour operators, and then we had your decision makers, and then you had your key influencers, people like your financial directors, then you had gatekeepers, things like your secretary, and then you had the end user, who was the traveler, who could be the technician in the workshop. And all of these people, we had a different strategy for all of these relationships that we built and the way we managed all of them. So you've got to be very careful that you don't step on anyone's toes. So I think transparency is absolutely.
No, you unmute. You unmute. No, you unmute. Yeah, unmute.
Okay, did you hear the first part of it?
Yeah, we heard everything up until
so I think transparency is very important, that if you're going to go to your end customer and you've got a distributor or a broker or a reseller, whatever that may be, it's important that you actually tell them about it. But you have to balance both relationships, but they all require different things. So in our business, travel agents and secretaries were really, really key, but we would handle them in a very different way to how we strategically managed the CEO of the business. Out of our top 100 customers that we had, I made it my point as the CEO of my business to make sure that I made once a year, I used to see the CEO of Investec or whichever company it was. I would make sure that they would see me face to face, not as a renter or not as somebody who travels, but just to make sure that our thinking and our objective in terms of what we were giving them was totally aligned. So I hope that answers your question, Karen, that they're both extremely important, but the relationship and the way you manage them are quite different.
Yeah, and I mean, one can be more about building your brand, but the other one can be more about building that connection with your customer. So as you say, Dawn, absolutely. And I like what Neil says as well. A great part of sales is creating a personal connection with your client. 100%, especially in your business, Neil. And, because what you really want at the end of the day, guys, is those repeat clients, because it's so much easier to, sell. It's so hard to create more and more and more clients. But if you're having repeat business from, a select number of clients, that is a much easier model. And, so you build up those clients and then they come back to you for more and more and more. It takes 7 times more energy and effort to find a new client than it does to actually continue to build your relationship with your current client. You might not have a business model like that. We luckily did have a business model like that. We didn't want to have 5,000 clients, but if you build trust and you build that connection, they will come back to you for more. And I think Neil, your business is very much like that as well. Getting those repeat clients, which is really, really what you want to do at the end of the day. okay, what is the best platform for use? Consultancy, as Dawn said, definitely LinkedIn. And, you know, LinkedIn's such a nice platform as well, because you can become a thought leader on LinkedIn. And this is where you can write articles and you can really, you know, especially now in this time, Dita, I think it's a time that you can understand the pain and offer the solution. And, you know, at the end of the day, sales actually means to give, but it's about you're figuring out your customer's pain and offering them that solution. So, you know, in a sales process, find the pain and then say, well, this is the solution to that, and just have that empathy for that. Would a contact with a client be any touch point, including social media accounts? Yes, it would be any touch point, including social media. Absolutely, because, you know, they're liking you, they're reposting for you. So it is all those interactions, definitely. And social media is such a cheap and easy way to connect with people, even if they're just seeing you out there. At least they're seeing you and you're building your profile. Exactly what Dawn said earlier. These 3 videos on negotiating. I thank you, Danielle. That's amazing. Please, guys, yeah, negotiating is absolutely an incredibly important skill. There are courses that you can go on, but if there are free videos, watch them. It is a very, very important skill. Okay, if first starting up, you don't have recommendations or reviews from other clients, how do you build trust? Such a great question, Joy. You just got to keep going, and you've got to, you know, you've got to use your networks, because referrals, this is where referrals are fantastic in the beginning. You know, do something right for 1 or 2 people, get them then to refer you. So, you know, you've just got to start somewhere, and you've just got to put yourself out there, step into the arena, and, you know, somebody's going to connect with you, somebody's going to buy from you, and build your trust and your relationships. And then ask for referrals and ask them for, you know, do you have a recommendation? Can you type me a recommendation? Can you share our posts? At this time as well, what we've massively found is people want to help. And there's a much more sense of sort of purpose out there at the moment. And I think people want to help. So, you know.
Yes, can I just add to that? And I think that if you're first starting out, it's a very good question, but it's all about the customer experience. So, you know, make sure that the first customers that you have a great experience. And then, as Les says, you know, make sure that you experience that. But our first days of business, our first couple of years, I mean, we were not allowed to trade at the airport. So many things happened. But that made us more and more determined. And we thought about how do we differentiate ourselves? And I can tell you now, the only way you can differentiate yourself is A, through technology, and B, through customer experience and customer service. And customer experience is not about the way you feel about your service. It's the customer's perception of your service. We often think, oh, that customer was happy, walked away with a smile. But is he really? It's the perception of that customer. So I would suggest that for your business that you have a review section. And in fact, every site you go onto today has a review section. Every time you phone a call center, afterwards, they ask you to track and give feedback. And feedback is absolutely critical. No one builds an e-commerce site or sell anything or have a customer service if you're not tracking it. CSI is absolutely critical. In fact, in most of our businesses, we could not get a BMW or a Mercedes dealership without having a proper formalized customer service index. And if the manufacturer or if the OEM, the Mercedes or BMW, if you had a bad rating, they could actually take your dealership away. It was all based on not the rands and cents, but the value that you were adding to their customers that were driving a Mercedes, that were driving a BMW, that were driving a Bentley. So all of you need to look at your sites and make sure that you've got a place. Who's Uncooked? Who works for Uncooked? Where, if you show me your hand, who is?
Dawn, yeah, Daniel has to leave at 9 because he's got an exec every Thursday.
Because there is a space there for customer comments, and all the good sites have a place to share your experience, share your review. And I don't ever do a booking by bookings.com or flights, whatever, Travel Start, without putting a review after. So I think it's really important to have somewhere on your site that gives the customer an opportunity to review your service.
And I think I'm just going to close now with make it easy for them. Don't make it hard for them to do business with you, especially online. Make your e-commerce site easy. You find the product easily. Your checkout is, the user experience is easy and smooth, because I think that builds trust once again. And people don't want to find it difficult to do business with you. And I think I'm going to close off on that point. But if there are any last questions, we're happy to take a couple of last questions. But Dawn and I do have another engagement at 10. So if there is anything else, please let us know. Otherwise, I think we're going to close off.
Lise, can I ask you quickly, can I just mention that next week we have a very special guest. I'm not giving anything away, but finance and numbers, for most of you, unless you CAs, are the boring parts. And I think, if there's anyone that I'm not going to watch, it's that one. But I've got a very exciting guest who will be joining us, who's a specialist in terms of building small businesses and financial models for entrepreneurs. And he'll be joining us. Is that okay that I mentioned that, Lise? Too late if you say no.
It's wonderful. We are so excited. I was actually going to end off with that by saying Dawn and Les. It's okay. I had a Zoom hitch for a minute and zoned out for a minute. So Dawn and Les, thank you. I'm very excited you're bringing the surprise guest next week. So we look forward to that. Thank you for an awesome session. Lots to think about and reflect on, and obviously lots of action to make it all happen.
Yes.
Have a great day, everybody, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Thanks, Les and Dawn.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you so much.
Keep well.